actually engage in economic activity. Because the government, I thought that they would do better than Buhari, because Buhari set the pace. The government of former President Buhari set the pace of people spending government money as if it's their personal money. So to that extent, the protests which had the hashtag "End Bad Governance" is appropriate, is the right thing to do. At least you bring the attention of government that what they're doing is not good. That to that extent, I think the protest is good, and they made their point, but it now behoves government to respond accordingly. By their actions, we will know whether they actually took it or they waved it aside.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that wonderful opening remarks, and of course, very insightful it is. We've been following the tragic death of 16-year-old Ismail Mohammed, who unfortunately lost his life in the course of this protest, right? Now, the Nigerian army compensated the family of Ismail Mohammed with 300,000 naira, of course. What is your assessment? I mean, there's been a lot of outcry in the media, on social media. 300,000 naira, is it truly the value of the life of a Nigerian? I mean, what is the gravity of this situation? I want to hear it coming from your own perspective.
In this country, the tragedy of this country is that human life is not valued for anything. In fact, they didn't try to bring money. What of those they kill and hide and tell you that they didn't kill anybody? Like what happened and they were hidden. The bodies were hidden. And the families were told that they could not be located, or at least, or they didn't participate in this. So the bodies were, at least in this one, they gave something. But I want to say that 300,000 naira for the death of somebody is very abysmal, is very disgraceful. Because not only is this small, the impression is given in this country that the value of human life is worth nothing, which is very unfortunate. Government exists for human beings. Government does not exist for trees or non-living things. So if government does not value the people who vote for it, who voted into existence, then something is wrong. The people in government should ask themselves whether they are behaving like human beings, or the government, the positions have changed to behave like animals. That's that.
Thank you very much. We've seen how the Nigerian army has handled cases of violence, with protests and all of these. Do you think the death of Ismail Mohammed is part of a broader systemic issue that has plagued the Nigerian society, that has bedevilled the armed forces of Nigeria in terms of how they relate to civilians? There's been some sort of speculation that the Nigerian armed forces perceive themselves to be on some kind of God level in relation to how civilians. Do you think the death of this young boy, who his life has been cut short and the prime of his youth, is part of a broader systemic issue that has plagued the Nigerian society? Mr. Godson Monica, are you still with us? Okay, I think Mr. Godson is having some network issues there. We've been talking about the death of 16-year-old Ismail Mohammed, who was tragically shot dead during the End Bad Governance in Kaduna State, Nigeria. And after the death, the army released a statement that they were trying to dispel the crowd when that incident, of course, occurred and Ismail Mohammed had to die. The Nigerian army, however, has offered a mere 300,000 naira compensation to the family of Ismail Mohammed to compensate for the death of their son. This has sparked widespread outrage across all parts of the country on social media and, of course, on the streets. We are saying and we are stating categorically clear that the death of any Nigerian cannot be quantified. It cannot be quantified whatsoever. Given the family of Ismail Mohammed is nothing but an insult to the family. The life of a young boy, and then all you can do is give a mere 300,000 naira to the family of the young boy. These are the issues we've been discussing, and we have had Mr. Gossim Moneke to dissect this issue with me, who has unfortunately lost his network and will not. And of course, we'll be hoping that he gets back to the program. In case there's any member of the audience who wants to come in, join and discuss about this, the floor is open. All you have to do is turn on your camera and your microphone, of course, speak to us. There have been several reactions from social media. What can be done differently? What is the relationship with Nigerians, the armed forces with Nigerians in terms of how they relate? The armed forces of Nigeria, they perceive themselves to be on some kind of god level in terms of how they relate with civilians. You go out on the streets and the soldier or even the police will tell you, bloody civilian, and it's of course bloody civilian, but these are the people you've been put in charge to protect their lives and property, to protect the sanctity of the Nigerian life and all of that. And these are the same people who are uttering all sorts of things and offering a mere 300,000 naira to the family of a young boy who has been killed in the prime of his youth. That young man would not live to achieve all of his dreams. That young man would not. I mean, it is a sad thing, and of course, our prayers and thoughts are with the family of Ismail Mohammed. Of course, you've all heard the topic, members of the audience. You've heard the topic, and the floor is open for you to join in to discuss the protests and justice and value for human life in Nigeria. All you have to do is turn on your camera and, of course, speak to us. But before our guest comes back, and of course, hopefully he fixes his network and talks with us. You can, of course, join the conversation on all of our social media handles, Diaspora Digital Media, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, and on every social media handle. The matter at hand is the death of 16-year-old Ismail Mohammed. What is the value of human life in Nigeria? A young man who was killed in the prime of his youth was given a mere 300,000. The family was given a mere 300,000 for what? I mean, these are the issues. The family of a grieving young man, and you come to the family and you tell them 300,000 naira is the value of your son's life. I mean, that is everything the Nigerian army has just said. That 300,000 naira is the value of the life of a young man who you shot. Appalling. As appalling as it is even funnier. These are systemic issues. We think that this is part of a broader systemic issue that has continued to plague the Nigerian society, that has continued to plague how Nigerians and, of course, their relationship with the military and, of course, the armed forces. Mr. Gossim Moneke was talking to us about these systemic issues before he had some kind of network glitch. And, of course, in case any member of the audience wants to join in, all you have to do is Ms. Dike Ngozi Uzochukwu, would you like to make a contribution? I see your microphone is on.
Yes, I just joined now.
Okay, do you want to make a contribution?
Let me hear you well.
So we've been talking about the death of 16-year-old Ismail Mohammed, who was shot by the Nigerian military during the urban governance protest in Kaduna State. And reacting to that event, the Nigerian army has gave a mere 300,000 naira to the family of Ismail Mohammed for, of course, this has sparked widespread outrage on social media and in every corner of Nigeria. A lot of Nigerians are saying, is 300,000 naira truly the value of life in Nigeria? Others are saying that this is an insult to the family. This is an insult to Nigeria. This is nothing but a spite on the face of Nigerians. How can you offer 300,000 naira to the family of a young man who is shot, protesting peacefully to end bad governance, to demand accountability from their leaders, and to demand justice for what is rightfully theirs? And these are just the reactions. I've been talking about that issue and the reactions of the Nigerian army. What, if you have been following the situation, I want to know your assessments of that situation. What do you think of it? And of course, if you would like to make any comments, the floor is open right now. Mrs. Dikengozi, that is what we've been talking about. I thought you wanted to make a contribution, of course. Ladies and gentlemen, the floor is open, of course, for us to discuss all of these things. What can we do better as citizens? How can we hold the military? How can we hold our governments accountable? I mean, these are the things we need to be talking about. As a Nigerian, as a human, it is an insult on every level, and these are things we must not condone as a people. As people and as promoters of good governance and accountability, what can we do to hold our leaders accountable? How can we, I mean, look at the situation. It's absurd, to say the least. It's absurd. I'm trying to think of an adjective to describe that situation of that 300,000 naira. I mean, how much politicians, how much do our senators and legislators earn? Millions and dollars in terms of millions of naira, in terms of wardrobe allowance, in terms of upkeep allowance, in terms of take-home allowance, and they are offering 300,000 naira to the family of a young boy who was shot dead in the prime of his youth. I mean, this is a joke. This is a joke on every level, and we need to start taking things like this serious. Ladies and gentlemen, as people of good, as promoters of good governance, and as a people that we want to hold our leaders accountable, we want to hold the governments accountable, and of course the military. But this is what they are telling us, that our life is a joke. Good morning, Mr. Time Lumba.
Good morning.
I see. Thank you for joining us. And I suppose you've been listening into the program and you've been following the developments as things unfold.
Yes. I've been listening, I've been following, and I have not lost out on anything. And then I heard your complaint about 300,000 naira.
Yes.
For the life of a young man. And that reminds me of what I have always said, that the issue here is not that this young man, that the life of every Nigerian, the life of this young man is worth 300,000 naira. The problem is that the life of an average Nigerian is not worth 50,000 naira. You are talking about paying compensation for 300,000 naira, which Nigerians should be celebrating. That the army even agreed to pay is a cause for celebration. That is one. Then that they've agreed to pay 300,000 naira is another cause of celebration. I have listened, if you have watched some interviews about some criminals or hoodlums who were arrested some time ago, one of them said that he was paid 25,000 naira to go and kill. And they killed. They succeeded in killing their victim. It was while sharing the money amongst them. I think they were giving 500,000 naira among the 5 or 7 of them that went for that operation. Then eventually, while sharing some of the money, there was a problem among them, which led to the arrest of all of them. So one of them said that all he got was just 25,000 naira to go and waste a life. Now, having said that, that tells us the level, the situation we find ourselves in a world where life is worth nothing. In this part of the world where someone's life is worthless. Now, another thing we should consider is, if the army paid 300,000 naira, can we get the receipt? You will be shocked when you eventually get the receipt. You will be shocked to find 2 zeros behind that 300,000 naira, if not 3 zeros. So I think we will write the army, and demand for the receipt of that 300,000 naira. I mandate DDM to do that. Using FOI Act, on the basis of FOI Act, we want to see the receipt of the 300,000 naira given to the House of Ismail. And I'm very, very sure that you'll be shaking to your marrows the day you see the receipt. You will find 1, 2, 3. You will find 1, 2, or more zeros behind that 300,000 naira. That is the world we live in. Then as for protests, I think the protests have eventually subsided, unless it's still raging in some part of the countries. I'm still trying to get feelers from, but the feelers I got from Abuja this morning is that it has subsided, that people are now going about their work. And then I asked, what have they achieved? You see, people should stop making a mockery of themselves. I've never seen where a protest is timelined, that it will last for 10 days. And then after 10 days, whether you achieve your goal or not, you go home. We've seen the protests in Bangladesh. We saw the one in Myanmar. We saw other protests. We see the ones in Europe, where millions of people troop to the streets. At the end of the day, they remained on the streets until their demands were met. That is why I always say that our people should stop making a mockery of these instrumentalities of democracy. You don't wake up and say we'll go on protest for 10 days. The question is, after 10 days, what next? The government might only sit up and try to fend off the protests while it lasts, knowing fully well after 10 days, everything returns to normal. And then after 10 days, actually, everything returns to normal, and the government will go back and the players, the political players, will go back, pop champagne and toast and say, it's all over. And then we'll return to status quo. Just this morning, somebody made a joke of that protest to me. He said before the protest, they used to buy fuel 850 naira in Anambra State. Before the protest ended, it was 900 naira. Are we not jokers? You started protest and one of your demands is that subsidy should be returned so that people will heave a sigh of relief from overspending on petroleum products. And then it was 850. You rounded up your protest, take us serious tomorrow. That is why, if you remember my argument from the previous conversation we held here on this your platform, on this will not yield anything. It will only impoverish a few people some more. And who are they who are being impoverished now? Those who love their means of livelihoods. Some shops were looted, some edifices were destroyed, and these are properties from where people earn a living. So, to those who are organizers of this protest, I always say, if you don't know what to say, it might be better to keep short. Silence is golden. But if you want to say something, make sure that you are heard, and that you are heard properly and deeply. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for that wonderful contribution. It's been insightful, and we will continue as advocates of good governance and accountability. We will always continue to call the government and security agencies out. Thank you, sir, for that again. Mr. Dan,
Yeah, thank you.
You've been
I want to ask a question. First of all, the guy that lost his life,
yes.
have the law enforcement agencies conducted an investigation to find out who pulled the trigger? And if the person has been identified, is he being prosecuted, or will he be prosecuted for murder? And that's my first question. The second question will be, have the family taken legal advice to see the possibility of suing the organization that killed the child? Because if it's found that it's a policeman or a policewoman that killed the child, then of course the Nigeria police as an organization should be held responsible. So have they taken legal advice to see whether they can sue the Nigeria police for unlawful killing? Another point I want to just a small response to the team's response. Well, it is not actually all the time that a protest will lead to immediate action. Sometimes you may simply organize a protest. A section of the populace can organize a protest just to show that they disapprove of what has been going on, or to simply tell the government that we are unhappy. In the UK here, for instance, for the past 6 months or so, since the beginning of the Gaza war, that's since October last year, there have been regular protests in the UK against this country's support for Israel. And right now, the citizens are protesting for the United Kingdom government to stop shipping arms to Israel. Well, the protests have been going on, but the government have not listened to them. And the people does not protest every day. Sometimes they simply protest maybe this Saturday. They do it just every Saturday, but not all Saturdays. They simply organize, do their protest, and then people go back to their businesses. They are simply telling the government, we are not happy with the way you are supporting Israel. So, but I can understand the sentiment in Nigeria, where if you don't have a listening government, and then you will feel that well, these protests have not succeeded because this government will do nothing about it. So I will say that whether the government will do what you want or not, a section of the citizens can go out on a protest to say, look, we are not happy with the way this government have been handling these affairs, or we are not happy with this policy or that policy. That's my contribution for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that wonderful contribution. You've broken down the situation of everything that is wrong with our society, and of course, as a people, you asked the question: what have the governments done if an investigation has been conducted? According to a statement by the Nigerian Army, the reports on the investigation were that the army was trying to dispel the crowds that gathered for that protest, and the officer in question shot the gun up to the sky to sort of to disperse the crowd, and then it accidentally hit Ismail Mohammed. I've apologized, and then according to them, this is the reports from that investigation, that it was just something the Nigerian Army trying to dispel the crowds when that incident occurred. Mr. Tim, you would like to say something?
Yes, actually, I want to make a quick response to what Mr. Dan said about, well, first to his question of whether government is taking any action against the particular security operative that pulled the trigger. Yes, the security operative that pulled the trigger has been arrested, and I'm waiting for prosecution, which I think the MB are still doing some investigation until they are ready to prosecute. That is one. Then secondly, another thing, why I said, although he later clarified that, he made a little bit, why I said that the protesters shouldn't just protest and go home is because, like he said, Mr. Dan said, we know we don't have a listening government. We are a third world country, for crying out loud. And in third world countries, when you start a protest, you drive it until you are heard or until you start receiving results. He lives in, Mr. Dan lives in Europe, where government listens to the people, where the voice of the people is supreme, where the people tells the government step down, and the government will start shivering. Whether shall we step down? What shall we do? It is not exactly the way it is obtained in third worlds. We saw what happened in Myanmar. Government was shooting, firing cannons, but the people stood their ground until they got results. We also saw those that have been protests that have been undertaken in other places like Venezuela and South American countries. We also saw the one in Kenya where the people stood their ground. If there's an ongoing protest, the government will be begging you to please clear the streets so that there will be peace. And the people will say, no, the government will be begging. In third world countries, the government doesn't beg. They come with brutal force, and they start firing tear gas, choking people with their gases. And then if that is not enough, they start firing live bullets, as we saw even recently in 2020 during the EndSARS and in this last protests. So my point is, why I said that we don't just say things for saying things' sake, is because I know that nobody's listening. So you keep drumming into people's ears until you'll be able to bust their earbands and your message eventually penetrates deep. If not, they will continue to make a caricature of us. They will think we are a bunch of jokers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tim. Mr. Kelvin.
Yeah, I'm here.
You've been following the discussion on, of course, that incident, 16-year-old Ismail Mohammed being shot dead in the prime of his youth for coming out in Kaduna State for that end bad governance protest. What can we do to end incidents like this? What can we do to stop things like this from happening in the nearest future?
My personal opinion, I don't see the government is listening. When I heard the story, it was devastating. I think the child was just in front of the door, was in his own house, wasn't even protesting. He stood close to the door, and there was this stray bullet from the soldier on the street that just went through the door and hit the child, and the child went. The child just gave up immediately, and all the military could do was to just call the father and give him a paltry 300,000 and did some photo ops with him. Me personally, I don't think the government is listening, and our hope is that in the near future or something like this, the government should be able to find a better way to take care of such substances. If the government was the government that was actually listening to its citizens, all this would have been avoided. The use of live bullets on protesters should also be avoided. I also believe you have rubber bullets, you have water cannons that could be used to drive, but just moving along the streets during a curfew, or I don't know what happened in Kaduna. So I'm just releasing live bullets at will, shows how unprofessional the military is. This is something that would have easily been avoided, but the government knows what to do, but they didn't listen. For me personally, I feel that if the government was serious, a lot of things would have been avoided. I'm watching the president of Kenya, William Ruto, the way he sits down to engage his citizens in town hall meetings, in the market square. He goes to the market square stays on top of his car, picks a microphone, engages them, crowd moving around. All these just took place after the protest that took place. He's listening, he's engaging them, he's implementing whatever they are doing. But yet we have a president that just sits down and feels that he's an absolute how would I put it? How would I put it according to this movie? Tinubu Almighty, let me put it that way. He feels like the box stopped at his desk. But there's one thing I know, that the power belongs to the people. And I think to me, the government is lucky and should have begun to address a lot of the things that these protesters requested for. They are lucky in the sense that the protesters stayed in their states and they protested. If all of the protesters moved to Abuja, I don't think it is the same story that would have been discussing today. I believe by now it must have fled the country just the way it happened in Bangladesh. I feel if they address this issue from the beginning, all these things would have been avoided. And the military itself, military needs to be overhauled. They are unprofessional. How can the street bullet just how can a street bullet from the street just fly out and just go and hit an individual who wasn't even protesting, a small child for that matter, who was just in his father's house? And that's what I feel. I feel the military should be overhauled when it comes to their professionalism. That's what I feel. And I feel the government should be more engaging with its citizens. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Kevin, for that wonderful contribution. While you were speaking, I think Mr. Godson Monica is back and is ready to join the conversation. Mr. Godson Monica, please put your camera in landscape mode so that we can continue from where we stopped. Yeah, that's okay. Try to centralize the camera so that you can be at the center of the central view of the camera. Yeah, that's better. Thank you very much for joining us again. Okay. Mr. Godson Monica, you were reacting to the death of 16-year-old Ismail Mohammed, who was shot dead during the end of governance protest in Kaduna State. So I want to ask you again, what do you think we can do to avoid situations like the upcoming demonstration, of course, moving forward as a country, as a people?
Yeah, thank you very much. I went off, I believe it was a technical problem, but I want to say that in this country, the way we are using the military is not the way the military should be used. It's the police responsibility to manage protests and not that of the military. Little thing will involve the military. It is a very dangerous thing we're doing. People in government should watch it. The military, as much as possible, you don't allow them to mix up with civilian populace. You cannot have a military regime side by side a civilian regime. Little thing, which is a civil protest, you are involving the military. They're shooting. They are doing that. One day they will shoot the leader and tell you it's a stray bullet. So you have to be careful. But the problem is that some of these people think they're doing anybody, but sometimes they don't know that they are destroying themselves. They are setting the pace. You see, when people began to ask for regime change, all these other ones, it's because the military is easy to get. It's easy for the military to do because you are bringing them into something that is not their business. So when if they are professionals, why should they be talking of stray bullet, hitting somebody that is not even there? Careless, because that is careless. You should tell us what you did to, who did that, who killed that person, and tell us what you are doing to punish him. It's not enough to give a token of 300,000 naira, and he goes. What have you done to the person who killed the young boy? The person who did that is probably an old man, probably who has so many years ahead of him. You are killing him. He is more useful to the country than the man that killed him. So you see, we in this country, a lot of things are being done upside down, and at the end of the day, people in government think they're wise, they're smart. They don't know that this is self-immolation. They are using their hand to invade the military to take over from them.
Yeah,
because it's not a little thing. You invite the military to come and a protest. Why should if a protest is not violent, why should even the police fire tear gas? You see, what the police is to do is to guard those who are protesting, to make sure that bad people don't infiltrate them. But in this country, it is the government that recruits bad people to infiltrate protesters. It happened in Lagos here, where I mean, I'm sure you saw the video of touts, multiple people beating up journalists who are covering protests because somebody said they should not cover them. Why should you ask journalists not to cover protests? What is their job if they cannot cover protests? Even journalists cover wars. A lot of journalists are in the Middle East, in Israel, in Gaza, covering wars with risk involved. But in this country,
this situation, it's sad, and we've seen things like this happen over the years, time and time again. These issues have continued to occur. Okay? Moving forward, what steps can we put forward? What steps should be put in place in order for us to be able to hold security forces accountable for their actions? What steps should be put in place?
The first step is to hold people who kill anybody to account. People must be accountable for how they use the bullets in their guns. You don't take bullets purchased by people and then use it to kill them and use the thing carelessly. You only shoot when your life is in danger. As a last resort, to protect yourself. It's not, you don't shoot for the fun of it. You don't shoot. See, our armed forces and the police there is so much indiscipline in the way they conduct themselves. When we were growing up, it's different from what we were told the military or the police did at that time. You don't fire shooting. Who replaces the bullets that you are wasting? And to talk of it that you use the bullet to kill innocent people, and yet the same people are going to pay for that. I think who anybody during demonstration.
Thank you, Mr. Moneke. Are you still? Your network is glitching. I thought you were done speaking, but then quickly before we round up for today, the Nigerian justice system has been criticized for delays and inefficiencies in terms of delivery of justice, right?
Yes.
What steps can be taken in order to expedite the delivery of justice for Ismail Mohammed's family if they choose to pursue the case and of course get justice for their son? What steps can be taken in order to expedite the process? Because we've often seen the Nigerian justice system have some kind of laissez-faire attitude in terms of matters that deal with state violence and of course military personnel and security forces in the future. What can be done to expedite and get justice for the family of Ismail Mohammed?
Thing that can be done is if the judiciary is ready to do its job. But the judiciary in Nigeria is neck deep in corruption. So nobody expects much from that in terms of pursuit of justice, because the judiciary itself, instead of doing its work, will join the oppressors, to do what's wrong, to make sure that the case does not see the light of the day. When the house collapses on our head, it's going to affect anybody. The fact that the judiciary think that they are immune to this thing is not going to. It's not. They are not immune because they, unlike before, you will say that the judiciary was okay and the politicians. So the house will also collapse on their head. Maybe because some of them have not tested prison, like they're above the law. But the truth is that they are inflicting a lot of injury on themselves, and they have to be very, very careful.
Thank you very much, Mr. Godson Monica. Now, again, quickly before we go for the day, considering the fact that Ismail Mohammed was just 16 at the time of his unfortunate death, do you think this incident will bring some kind of disillusionment in terms of how youth approach politics? Do you think incidents like this will kind of give youth the perception of some kind of political apathy in terms of how they participate in politics? Do you see them withdrawing from political situations and all of that, considering the fact that Ismail Mohammed was a 16-year-old boy who was shot dead at the time of his death?
On the contrary, this may give more impetus for younger ones to go into politics, to correct what they see as wrong. So what is happening? Killing of the young boy will not dissuade. Instead, it will act as an incentive for the young ones to go into politics in order to correct what they see as wrong with the system. So it won't be long when the young ones will chase these cargos who cannot respect themselves. These old people, the young ones will chase them away, the way things are going. Because I don't know, they call them the wasted generation. If there is a more negative term to use, I think we can use that. I haven't seen something like that. It's unimaginable. That they behave as if they're not human beings.
Thank you very much, Mr. Monica, for sharing your thoughts with us this morning. The issues we've discussed today here are deeply troubling and concerning. We all as a nation, as a people, must hold and continue to hold our leaders, our security agencies accountable. Your insights and thoughts this morning have shared to us a clear path forward. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much.
Now, before we round up for the value of human life cannot be understated. We must continue to hold human life in high regard. As a people and as a country, 300,000 naira to the family of Ismail Mohammed is nothing but an insult. And the Nigerian army, the Nigerian government must continue and should do the right thing in order to get justice for the family of Ismail Mohammed. Thank you everyone for joining this program this morning. My name is Emmanuel and this is DTM Politics. Good morning and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you for joining us, sir.